Welcome. 239 Uncensored, everything Southwest Florida and beyond. And I want to let you know that we have a great podcast. This is going to be a very neat episode. Interesting, and it's going to bring us a lot of awareness. We have Alina Donahue in the studio.
Hi.
Alina, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and what do you think about the studio? I always like to ask people because it's kind of cool.
It is super cool. It's something like that you would see on TV. I love it.
Yeah, we have a good time in here, and people kind of get like a little bit of a vibe. And we have Alina here because Alina is a human trafficking survivor.
Yes.
And this occurred pretty much in the 239 in Collier County, Naples, Florida. She's going to tell her story. And I think this is going to be a great, informative, inspirational story. And, Alina, let's go ahead and just, get right to it. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, your story, why you're doing what you're doing, and, what's the future look like for you?
Yeah. So, I am a human trafficking survivor. It happened 10 years ago. And it took me 10 years to come forward and not, be afraid or ashamed or embarrassed to talk about it. But I was sexually trafficked in Naples, Florida. Yeah. So it does happen. It does.
So to the people out there, and we have Alina's wonderful daughter here with her husband, Tommy, in the background. So we have some great background with Isabella.
Hi, Mama.
She's doing great. She's looking at her mother. But so when people say there's no way, I mean, this is Naples, Florida. This is Southwest Florida. We've got this community has no crime, no situations that could ever happen like that. What do you tell them?
I tell them that it does happen. Human trafficking does not discriminate. It can happen anywhere. A lot of people think that human trafficking is an international issue, only an international issue, but it's not. It's happening domestically. It's happening, statewide and locally, especially here in Collier County. And I mean, I'm proof that it happened because I was a victim of it.
Yeah, and my background. I was in law enforcement for 31 years, worked at the Collier County Sheriff's Office. So I can attest to the fact that we do have an element here. We do have human trafficking here. I know it does. The impact to the community, and I know you're going to tell your story here a little bit, but what is that? What is the impact of the community? I mean, how does it affect us?
A lot of people think that human trafficking's, not happening, so it doesn't affect them. But I believe it affects everyone. And it affects everyone, especially if you're not educated on the subject, because it could be happening right in front of you. And if you don't, educate yourself on the subject or, allow yourself to be educated, then nothing's ever going to change. So what I'm hoping is that, my voice and my story changes that. I really do. I hope that my voice and my story changes that stigma, and people are aware that it's happening locally and that you can overcome it.
So give us your story. I know it goes way back in time, right? So I'm proud of you to come out and talk, and I'm so glad to have you, here on the podcast, because I think this podcast gives a good community awareness opportunity for people to get their information out. Go back in time and give us a little bit about what started it, how it started, and why you're different than maybe other people that have been human trafficked.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when people think of human trafficking, they think that, there's a stigma to it. They think that the victim either comes from a bad home, didn't have a good upbringing, they struggle with sobriety, runaways, etc. The list goes on. But I was literally your girl next door. I was raised in a very conservative Catholic family. I had the perfect childhood growing up in Naples. My parents were we were a middle-class family. I went to school in Naples, graduated from Palmetto in 2008. Right. So I was trafficked 10 years ago. So the first time it happened was February of 2012. So 10 years ago in this month. But how it took place was my trafficker, he portrayed himself as a boyfriend. So the entire time that this was going on, I just thought we were in a really messed up relationship because it's as if he groomed me, and he did. He groomed me to his perfection. I was so innocent and so naive. And he took advantage of that. He took advantage of the fact that I was so gullible, and I grew up in a, conservative, household, and, overprotective household. So he offered me, you know, those things that I wish I would have experienced. Like, for example, I wasn't allowed to go to the movie theaters at 16, or, have sleepovers or anything like that, because my parents were so, overprotective, which is a good thing. But at the same time, they didn't really, discuss things about the real world with us, because they were just so overprotective. So my trafficker, who again portrayed himself as, as my boyfriend, and in law enforcement world, he's a Romeo. That's how he portrays himself. He's a Romeo trafficker. But yeah, I thought I was.
How'd you meet him?
I met him. I went out. I was in college. I was going to FSW, Florida Southwestern, and I went out to go have some drinks with friends, and to go dancing. And that's where I met him. And we had mutual friends. So I thought that, if we had mutual friends, then he's a good guy.
He's safe.
Yeah, he's safe, that there'd be no issues whatsoever, because some of my friends knew who he was. But he didn't have a good rep. He had a bad rep. He had already been to prison. He had like this bad boy vibe persona to him. But again, being so naive and gullible, I thought that because we had mutual friends, I was safe with him.
Right. And he's been jammed up. He may be trying to rehabilitate himself, meet you, and the whole list goes on and on. Right?
Oh yeah. He was a narcissist. The way he portrayed himself, it was as if he was the perfect guy. And I really thought he was. He portrayed himself like the perfect guy. He was so charismatic and caring and giving and loving. And I was like, wow, whatever people think of this guy is wrong, because this guy's awesome. But yeah, it was all a front. These traffickers know what they're doing. They know who to prey on. And he took advantage of that.
So how did it progress?
So it progressed really quickly. I would say we started dating immediately. We moved in within, less than 2 months. And he was like perfect. And he was just so nice and everything. And then one day, he wanted me to apply for this modeling ad. And I was not interested in modeling. I worked at the Coastland Mall, and I had my little part-time job, and I was good. But when I refused to apply to that modeling ad, that's when he got violent. That's when he became aggressive. And I didn't know how to act, and I didn't know how to, handle this situation. So I agreed to go to the modeling ad just to keep him calm and to keep him happy, in a sense. And as soon as I agreed to go to the modeling ad, it's like he changed. He was like a chameleon. He changed, and he was back to being that charismatic, kind, loving person.
You felt, okay, so I went to this modeling, or I made this appointment for this modeling opportunity.
Yep.
He's happy now. That's how I can. He's happy if I do what I want, what he wants me to do.
Absolutely. I thought, and then I felt like I owed him something. I felt like I owed him that gratitude because he was so nice to me, which was completely wrong. It was wrong. I didn't owe him anything. But I felt like I did, because he was so kind and so loving to me. And he also made it a point. I remember he was like, I've been so good to you, and when I ask you to do something, you're going to say no. And that's how it just transpired. It transpired from there.
So the modeling situation, how did that go from there?
So he made sure that I went to the modeling interview, which I thought was really sketchy and not normal. But he drove me to the modeling interview to this undisclosed location. And I went in to the interview where this guy was to do the interview, but in reality, it wasn't an interview. It was an initiation to be trafficked, and I was raped by this guy who portrayed himself as the guy that was going to do the interview. So that's how I got into the whole trafficking world.
Now, when you went into the interview, you sat with this guy and basically he wouldn't let you out of the room, or you basically knew you better do something to get out of the room? How did that work?
So when I went into this room, the guy portrayed himself as like he was going to do his interview. So I was trying to calm myself down because I was extremely scared and nervous.
Right.
But he asked for like my driver's license, and I said, okay, or, this is normal. He's asking for my driver's license, and he asked me questions. Have I ever modeled before? Things like that. So I was like, okay, so we're still good. It's still an interview. And then that's when it transpired. And he asked me, to take off my clothes. And I was like, whoa, this is no longer an interview. And then it just went downhill from there.
Right.
And then that's when it became, I know now that was a trafficking initiation. But then I didn't know how to process it because, we watch all these movies and whatnot, and we always think, like I didn't want to be a rape victim, and I didn't want to think I was a rape victim. So I figured that if I didn't fight back and I didn't scream and I complied, then it wasn't rape, but it was.
Right.
But it was.
Right. Yeah, because you went there a totally different thing, and it just
absolutely.
So you made it through that interview uncomfortable. It wasn't an interview. You made it through that sexual battery that occurred on you.
Yep.
And then when you left the room, what did you do? Did you pick up the phone, and was he there waiting for you?
When I left, he was in the parking lot waiting, and I ran to the car and I told him what just took place. And he said to me, he looked at me and he said, I don't know what you're crying about. He's like, this is work related. If it's not work related, let me know now. And that just means you cheated. So that's how the whole trafficking, it just started. He was in on it.
Was there money exchange at that point?
Not that I'm
not on your end.
Me. Yeah, not with me. I never.
You don't know about what he was getting on the back end.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, even I was trafficked for a total of 8 months. And that's what I'm writing a book, and that's what my book is about.
Yeah, and we're going to talk all about that. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
But I was trafficked for a total of 8 months. Never saw any monetary from it. Like I never got anything from it. I had to give it all to my trafficker, any of the money. But yeah, it's just, it's a messed up world. That is for sure. And I want to bring light to it because again, it's important to bring light to it because it's a topic. Human trafficking is a topic that is so hot right now, and everyone wants, it's like all hands on deck, but no one wants to do the hard work and no one wants to listen to the realities of it. It's just like, it's a topic that people want to be a part of, but no one wants, to really be a part of it.
To know about the nitty gritty stuff
Absolutely.
that really goes on and how this has impacted you and other women. It's just, I can just imagine.
Absolutely. It's a dark world. And people need to realize, like, if you want to know and educate yourself on human trafficking, then you have to know it all. And the reality of it, it's not pretty. But if you want to learn about it, you have to know the nitty gritty of it. You have to know that bad things do happen.
So once that was done, you met with your trafficker outside, wanted to perceive it as boyfriend, or he did at least, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. What transpired next, I guess, to go through to the next point? I mean, how you didn't want to call law enforcement because at that point you didn't feel like it was truly a situation where you should call law enforcement, or you kind of wanted to save some embarrassment, or how did that
So, here's the reason why I never contacted law enforcement. First of all, when I went into the room for the interview, the guy was like 6'4", and he looked like he was part of a biker gang. Like this guy was scary. And remember how I said at the beginning that he took my driver's license and I thought it was a legitimate interview because he grabbed my driver's license. Well, when the whole ordeal finished, he said, I now have your information. I know where you live. I know where your parents live, your family lives. So if you tell anyone, I will kill your family. And that's why I never went to law enforcement, because I was petrified. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy looked like he was like in a Hell's Angels gang. Like he was just so scary. And then me being naive and gullible, the fact that he now had my driver's license information, I was like, this guy's going to really harm my family. And being so close with my family, I was like, there is no way I'm saying anything because I don't want nothing to happen to my family.
Right. You had no reason not to believe he would technically do that.
Yeah. Well, after he did what he did to me, there was no reason not to believe him,
Now, were you of age at that point?
I was 21.
Okay, so you're 21.
Yeah, I was 21.
So yeah, so that makes it a little bit different, but sexual battery is like, sexual battery in a situation like that is crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think really a lot of people feel like human trafficking is basically bringing people in from another country.
Yep.
And then when they come into the country, they have to work off the fees through usually sexual acts and things like that. But it correct me if I'm wrong, it's like cultivated locally too as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's different aspects to human trafficking. Think of it of like as an umbrella. So there's human trafficking, but then there's sexual human trafficking, and there's also labor trafficking.
Correct.
Labor trafficking it does happen, especially locally and domestically, but there's also sexual human trafficking, and it happens a lot more domestically, especially within the United States, to local American girls than it does to, international victims. And at least I'm saying that within, domestically. So it does happen to American girls. It's not just international victims.
Right. So you guys progress, and I keep using the word progress because I'm trying to do a timeline through here. So you ended up doing that, and then you said that you did this for about 8 months. Was it frequent, or did he pretty much take you to locations and drop you off, and then you come back to like a normal relationship? I mean, when I say normal relationship, like nothing ever happened type of thing.
So no, from there, it transpired. I was forced to work. I was forced, when it comes to human trafficking, what defines it is force, fraud, or coercion. And I was definitely forced to do it every single day. He would, again, keep portraying himself as a boyfriend. So the lies and the manipulation that come with it, especially someone that's with you 24/7. I never left his site. There was one time I tried to leave his site and it did not go well at all. But I mean, he was like my shadow. I could not escape. And I was just forced to do whatever it is he wanted me to do. So it happened like daily for 8 months. It really did. And it was just like, it was as if it was as if I was living this thing that didn't exist, because I felt like I was constantly looking at people from the outside. So if we were like out at McDonald's grabbing a bite to eat, even though he was with me, I would look at other people and I was like, wow, I just want to be normal. I want to get out of this so bad.
Right.
But I didn't know how to. And again, imagine somebody being your shadow 24/7. I mean, it starts taking a mental toll on you. It's emotionally draining. It's emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So you get to a point where, you just want it to end, but you don't know how it's going to end, and you think you're stuck.
All right. Did you at any point, like, say, I guess, talk to like somebody close, or are you just that afraid not to do that? I mean, as you're going through, I'm just trying to put it in perspective here. When you're going through and you're like 8 months into this and you're doing this every day, when does that come to a point where you're like, this shit has got to stop?
Oh yeah. So I was really close with my family, and he knew that. But being the narcissist that he was, he would control. So he would make sure that I would talk to my family, my sisters, my mom, because till this day, I still call my mom to say goodnight. And he knew that. So what he would do is he would make sure that I would talk to my family, and he would time it. He would tell me when to call them, and he would tell me how long to call them for, so that they thought nothing was wrong. So I'm telling you, every minute and second of my life for those 8 months was absolutely controlled by him. So he controlled my relationship with my family, with my friends. And just like an abuser, when it comes to domestic violence as well, he just started, removing me from, my family and my friends, and he just controlled everything. So even if I wanted to, how do I tell someone that, that I want out from what I'm doing, if he's telling me that what I'm doing is normal, and then he's also telling me if you tell anyone, they're going to think you're a prostitute. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't want that, because I'm not a prostitute.
Right. Yeah. And kind of like this web.
Yeah.
There's just like this web, and he's got you.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, right. When did it start turning? I know it started turning criminal with some fraud and some things like that, based on your story that you sent me. When did it start doing that? And then when did you start getting jammed up in that situation?
I would say towards the end of it. So 6 months into it, whenever I'd tell him that I didn't want to, I didn't want to do what he wanted me to do, he would start giving me pills and ecstasy and whatnot. So I would comply. I would be compliant. But then he, like I said, he was a narcissist. He was a manipulator. So one day he was like, you know what? I don't want you to work anymore. And I still so gullible. And I was like, oh my God, thank God it's over. Well, there was always something to it. So he was like, I don't want you to work, but I want you to do A, B, and C for me. I have these credit cards and I want you to use them. And if you ask a victim in their moment of survival, right, of their daily survival, would you rather be in a room and wait for an undisclosed amount of men to come through that room and you don't know who's coming in through that room? Or would you rather just use a credit card at Walmart or, at whatever store? I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to use the credit cards. I'd rather use the credit cards than be in a room and not know who's coming in through that door. So it was a no-brainer to me. I didn't see it as I knew I was doing something wrong, but it beat the hell out of whatever I went through on that daily basis.
Right.
So that's when it just led to, just choosing to commit these, fraudulent activities that he would come up with all the, every day. He'd be like, okay, I need you to do A, B, and C. And I was like, okay. Because the way I processed it in my mind is, okay, so I'm going to do A, B, and C, and there's no danger to it.
Right. Versus the other stuff.
Yeah. Versus being in a room and not knowing who's coming in through that door. Because he controlled everything. So I didn't know who was coming in through that door on a daily basis.
I mean, would you go back to that? Would you like sometimes rent a room and then people would come to you? Is that how that worked, or would it be different scenarios each time?
No. So when it comes to that world, there's like in calls and out calls. So for me, it was primarily only in calls.
So you would have a place, people would come to you, or
Yes.
out calls when you'd go to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. So the alternative to that was doing
using
credit card frauds, which is definitely
not good,
but definitely better than the alternative.
Yeah. It's 100 at that point in time, in my mind, as a survivor, as a victim that I was, it was better. To me, it was better. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah. Now, how did that work? Did he steal credit cards and then you just went to make purchases, or do you know anything how that happened?
I'm just going to assume that that's how it took place. I don't know how he got a hold of the credit cards. All I know is that he had them and he would tell me to use them, and he would ask me to buy, like dumb stuff with value so he can sell it to like friends or on the streets or whatever it was.
Right.
But I don't know.
What was a big item that he would?
iPads.
Yeah, iPads.
iPads. Because back 10 years ago.
Very, very good to get.
Yeah. 10 years ago, that was like a big commotion.
Right.
Now everyone has an iPad. I mean, my 8-month-old has an iPad. That's ridiculous. Embarrassing to say.
Yeah, but it's good to keep them occupied, right? No, So, and then you finally got caught, right?
Yes. So when we finally got caught, that was the best day of my life. It really was. And we got caught by the Collier County Sheriff's Office.
I was on patrol.
Yeah.
I didn't catch you, but
no, you did it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this.
It's kind of amazing that you say that. This is like the best day of your life.
It was the best day of my life because I knew at that point in time.
Up to your kids, I'm sure.
Oh yes, I love my kids.
I know what you're saying.
And my wedding day.
And I was there to wedding day.
Yes, you were. But no, I'll tell you this. A lot of people, when they talk about being incarcerated or getting arrested, especially, Collier County Sheriff's Office, because they are just on point with what they do. They have these they have this resentment and things like that. Till this day, I'll tell you, it was the best day of my life because even though they didn't know it, even though the sheriff's office didn't know it, they were removing me from that problem, which was my trafficker. They were removing him from me. Imagine being with somebody for 8 months nonstop every second of the day, and then you get arrested. And I remember the cop that arrested me, he was like, "You're going to jail, Missy." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I am." Like I'm good.
Take me.
Yeah, take me. I was good. And I had no problem. And that's another thing. They saw me smiling and they were like, "Oh, just another one that thinks it's a joke." And it wasn't a joke. It was liberating to me. It was liberating.
But at that point, you didn't tell him
Oh gosh,
what
no.
was going on. You were just
No.
like, okay, whatever I gotta do.
No. Yeah, no. Whatever I needed to do to get the hell away from him, I did. But they didn't know it. And I never told the sheriff's office. I never told anyone about what happened to me because I just took that to the grave. I was just like, I'll take it as a loss. It's done. It's over, and I'm going to rebuild my life.
What was it? What were the charges, and what was the thing that got you caught? Like, can you run us through that?
So the charges were it was credit card fraud,
right?
It was that. It was multiple charges on credit card fraud, and what was the second question?
Yeah, just I guess then you went to jail
Yes.
and you didn't bond out. You
Nope.
just stay there for a period of time, obviously.
Yep. So my bond had been revoked because we had been arrested like a month and a half prior on the same charges.
Okay. And then you did it again, or is it like charge as a
committed the same crimes again? So
right.
they just picked us up on new crimes, same charges.
Got it, right.
So at that point, my bond was revoked. So I did a year, 10 months, because you don't do the entire year, but I did, my time at the Collier County Jail. And, it took a lot to process. I was really upset because I didn't understand why this was happening to me. And I was just, but at the same time, relieved because I was away from him, but I didn't know who to share that with. So I just did my time, and that was that, trying to process what just happened within those 8 months, because it was like, it just happened so quickly. But when you're in it, it's just dragging. But yeah, no, I did my time and I never told anyone about it.
When you went to jail, that experience, the whole time, do you feel like this has got to be like a TV? I don't belong here. This is a TV show going on or something. What's going on?
I'll tell you what, I looked around because even though I was doing drugs to be compliant, I never became an addict. I wasn't dependent on those drugs. So I, while I was in jail, I would see all these girls come in with, struggling with sobriety, and they were coming in and out as if this was, like a
weekend getaway.
Yeah, a weekend getaway or overnight stay. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like, this is a lifestyle for some of these
new people when they were coming in. Hey, how's it going? Hey.
Yeah, they treated it like a how do you say it? They treated it like it was a college dorm room. Right, they really did. Right. I was in General Pop, and they treated it like a college dorm room, and I was like, we're in jail.
Yeah.
What the hell?
In Collier County Jail, and it's a safer environment, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's not the best place to be because your freedoms are taken away. Probably clean, well managed compared to most.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when like the girls from the East Coast would come, like if there was any girls from like Broward County that would come, they'd be like, this is a nice jail. And I was like, what's it like over there? They're like, bad.
Yeah. Wouldn't want to be involved in that. So that process, and then you did your time.
Yep, did my time.
And then how did it go from there?
So I did my time, and when I got out of jail, I went back home. I promised my parents. First of all, I told my parents, I was like, listen, I was in a really bad relationship. I did what he wanted me to do. And, it was stupid decisions, and that's what landed me in jail. I never told my parents what really happened to me. Because I just couldn't bear breaking their hearts, especially my mother's. My mom is my everything. And my dad he passed away in 2020, but my dad was my hero. So the thought of breaking his heart, I was like, there's no way. So I just told them, I did stupid stuff, and that's what landed me in jail. So when I got out of jail, I just went back to being normal me. I was on probation. I paid my dues. I finished probation, and I just did my best to reintegrate back into society. I mean, since then, I haven't gotten a speeding ticket, nothing. I mean, following the rules, like, the reason there's a jail is so that when you go to jail, you learn from your bad mistakes, right, and you integrate back into society.
It's not a country club.
Exactly. Right. Well, I don't think a lot of people learn from their
correct
mistakes.
Behavior.
Exactly. I was scared straight. I was like, there is no way in hell I will ever go back to jail. And I learned from my mistakes, even though I was forced to do bad things. but yeah, no, I went back. I went back to school. I got a job, and I just tried to live my life as normal as can be while staying away from my trafficker, who has since deceased.
Yes, that's really that was my next question. So when you got out of jail, did you have fear that your trafficker did your trafficker pass away while you were in jail? Or
no, he passed away afterwards.
Right.
He passed away afterwards.
And I listened to part of that and the information you gave me.
Yeah.
So when you got out, you must have been freaked out. Like, is he gonna come to my house? Is he gonna contact me?
Yep. I was. And in my book, I go into detail about it, the encounters and whatnot. But no, I stayed true to what I wanted to do, which was stay away from anyone who was even remotely a bad influence. And I did. And I stuck to it.
Good for you.
I stuck to it.
That's good. So now we're at a situation, and I know a little bit about what you've done and how you've helped out the community and things like that. Now we're in a situation when you got a little time, you were able to go to I think it was a seminar, symposium, or a conference or something at that point, and you got enlightened on some new laws and statutes that allow you to maybe clear up your record based on your status as human trafficking. How did that work?
I believe that with my story, everything happened for a reason, and it was just destined. I came, into the presence of Linda Oberhaus, the CEO of the Shelter for Abused Women and Children in Naples, Florida. And she was the first person that I ever shared my story with. And when I shared my story with her, I don't know why, but I did. And she brought it to my attention that I was a human trafficking survivor. So that's kind of how that transpired. But she's the one that brought it to my attention. And she's like, you do realize that you qualify for this statute that helps human trafficking survivors get an expungement, because the statute states that if you can prove that you're a survivor of human trafficking and you were, and you were forced to commit these fraudulent crimes, on the alternative of being trafficked, then you can get an expungement. And she brought it to my attention, and we just went through it. And she let me know. She's like, it's never been used. The statute has never been used. So I don't know how it'll transpire. I don't know how it'll take place. But we did. We hired an attorney to help us with it. And then Sergeant Wade Williams at the sheriff's office, he helped me become classified as a victim. I showed him, I shared my story with him, and, he was in awe. He really was. He's like, wow. And my first trafficker, he's like, yeah, he was taken down by the Attorney General of Florida because he was, doing this to a lot of girls.
Yeah, because I think what people are going to say is like, okay, you got caught, you got in trouble. Now I'm going to go back and use this as, human trafficking to get out of it. But what do you say to those people that maybe doubt, hey, this was something she chose to do at 21 years old?
You know what? Again, get educated on human trafficking.
Yeah,
if there's human trafficking, in order for it to be human trafficking, there has to be force, fraud, or coercion. I was forced to do those sexual acts.
And probably like all three of those.
Yeah. I was forced, I was coerced, and there was fraud, because at the end of the day, I didn't make a dime out of, this fraudulent scheme that was going on. The trafficker did. So with my case, all three, and with a lot of cases, all three of those things come into play. And to those people that say, well, she chose, no, I didn't. I mean, I had a shadow 24/7. I didn't have a choice. Right. And that's a real thing. You don't have to be tied up to something in order to not have a choice. I mean, this guy just controlled every aspect of my life. So he removed my right to have a choice right then and there.
Through fear and through intimidation, and coercion.
Oh,
do you think were you the only one that he had as a victim? Do you know of at that time, maybe in the 8 months probably period?
That I know of. I'm sure there's more.
Right. Maybe before.
I'm sure after. Before and after. Yeah. I just don't know.
Was he a lot older than you?
He was. Okay. He was older than me by, I would say, like, I think it was like 6 or 7 years.
Okay. Yeah. And very interesting. So tell us a little bit about, so you're there, and I believe you did some work at the shelter, and I think you worked there. Tell us a little bit about that. And then, we've got a little bit of time. We could go on forever on this topic, but when the book does come out, and I know you're working feverishly on it.
Yes.
And we will definitely bring this back because it's a great topic and very interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your work at the shelter and kind of where you're at now and, kind of what the future holds.
Yeah, so I've been with the Shelter for Abused Women and Children for 4 years. I helped co-create the 18-month human trafficking residential program at the shelter. So it's a model program for the entire nation. And it's a residential program for female survivors of sexual human trafficking. So we house them. It's in out of Immokalee, our second shelter, second location, the Shelley Stayers Shelter. But we house victims, especially local victims in Collier County in Southwest Florida. We house these victims in our program, and we help them overcome their trauma. We offer them housing. We help them reintegrate back into society, get a job, go back to school, whatever it is they want to do. But the most important thing is that we help them overcome their trauma of being sexually trafficked. So I helped co-create that program, and we opened in the middle of a pandemic, and it's been super successful thus far. And I'm super proud that I was able to be a part of that. But yeah, what the future holds, definitely the book is going to come out at some point.
Do you have a name for it yet? Or maybe you don't want to reveal it.
I can't reveal it just yet. Okay. But what I want to be different with my book is the fact that I really want it to go into detail about what it's like to be trafficked, so people understand that it can happen to anyone. Like I said before, you don't have to be tied or chained up to something in order to do it. But yeah, it really goes into detail about my experience of being trafficked. I mean, into detail. So it's definitely an 18 and over book.
Yeah, no, it sounds very interesting. And when that book comes out, again, you in any time you have any carte blanche to come, here to the studio and talk and go over anything. And because I think the information you're letting the women know, and anybody who's involved in human trafficking, it's just solid information, and anything we can do to help out, that would be great.
Absolutely. I mean, the more we can create education and awareness, which is what I'm hoping to do, then the better. Because then people will really have a grasp on the topic of human trafficking. And again, it's not just an international issue. It's a domestic issue, and it's an issue that's happening here in Collier County.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's been great. All right. 239 Uncensored, everything Southwest Florida and beyond. And this is episode 105. It's been great. And we always do a little thing in the middle. We are out. Thank you so much. This is great.